Hello, Kate. How are you?
Hi, John. I am great. Couldn't be better.
Your hair looks effervescent and magical. It is almost as effervescent and magical as that smile on your face, young lady. Always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I look where you're sitting. I see that shelf, and I am reminded of the many hours that we spent together in that room, in that house, taking lots and lots and lots of branded lifestyle portraits.
Mhm.
But before we talk about that particular experience, why don't you let people know who you are, who you serve, and why you do what you do?
Okay. So, my name is Kate MacKinnon. I am a Feng Shui expert, speaker, and artist. And I'm adding on to that life coach, which hasn't been included yet.
Oh,
And so I say that I serve people who are leaders in their life and help them step into their power and greatness through the power of Feng Shui. And through Feng Shui, it's all about creating balance and flow in people's space. And by doing that, we're also creating balance and flow within them that allows them to actually live a bigger, more expanded life. Doesn't matter where they are. I see people step into their greatness no matter where they are. And
yeah,
so I do homes, I do offices, we do cars. I do lots of
yes,
I do space, whatever that is. Small space, big space doesn't matter to me. I love doing it. It's
yeah,
my joy, it's my passion. I do it because I just worked with a client who said, I got so much, thank you so much. She said, I hope you get something from it. And I said, I do this because this is my gift. And the feeling I get when I'm of service and people really get something is why I do it.
yeah.
Just gives me total joy.
No, and I've seen, obviously I've seen your space, and just by looking at all of it's like when I was in your home, it felt very calm and very conducive to creativity. And I'm not exactly a feng shui expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I do appreciate space and negative space and movement and all of that. And yeah, I mean, I can't stop staring at those books. They're so organized. I love them.
People love them, by the way. People, you captured that so beautifully. It's become iconic. Like people are like, if I go sit somewhere else, they're like, where are your bookshelves?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but thank you. What I want to say, what you just said, which is really beautiful, is that what I love is people think they need to know about feng shui. They don't need to know anything. They just know it feels good, right?
Yeah.
And that's the point. You step into a space and you go, wow, this feels really good. You don't know why. It doesn't really matter. That is the point. And just like,
Yeah. No, and that is exactly, because it's not just the bookshelf. It's the way you have the layout of the living room and the way that it flows into the dining space, into the kitchen. It's all just so uh, uh, flowy, for lack of a better word. But and that was one of the main things that we really needed to capture within your branded lifestyle portraits, to capture that essence, to capture that vibe and that feeling, because that's the type of work that you do. And in order to kind of allow people to see that, it's a great place to start at home. Now, before you actually picked up the phone to call me to book this portrait session, where exactly were you with your business, and what was your mindset going into that? What necessitated that call?
so a couple things. One, so we spoke just about a year ago, and we first spoke, I think we first connected last summer. And I had retired in 2017, at the end of 2017. So the beginning of last year was sort of the beginning of, I always say I retired out of a corporate business into my feng shui business, being a creative entrepreneur. The truth of the matter is I've been doing feng shui for over 20 years, doing it as on the side while I was doing my corporate job. And I had a website that was very simple. I wanted to have an online presence. And I knew that part of my reinventing, if you will, but really stepping into doing this full time was I needed to have a real online presence. It was no longer, my business was word of mouth, which is a great way to do business. But I thought if I really wanted to get out there, I feel like I have a message, I want to go big, that I need to have an online presence. And the truth of the matter is the picture, which as you know, we had to retire, I call it my ingenue picture, which was from 20 years ago, still think it's beautiful, but I needed to become who I am today.
Yeah.
And so I knew that I wanted that. I knew I wanted to have things for social media. And I felt because I'm in a visual business, the pictures were so important. So I was lining up someone to do a website. I was having, as you know, somebody coaching me doing content and talking and getting my message. And I felt like then the visuals were, for me, maybe most important, but I had to be clear about what it was I was trying to communicate so you could come and help me do that. So that's where I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, now, obviously, I didn't just show up at the house on Long Island and, all right, let's figure this out let's make it happen. We talked a lot about that, and we kind of strategized a couple of different things regarding the website and later on for what you were going to do with social media. Where was the value in that for you? How valuable was talking through all of that stuff with the strategy call, the idea nugget stuff, all of that stuff?
Yeah, I would say, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit because this is just kind of, to give context for people who don't know me. So people have said to me, so I retired and they said there was a Kate, and I went away for a couple months, I reset. So I went to Spain for a month and a half, and they said there was a Kate before Spain and there was a Kate after Spain, two different things. And we had started speaking at that time, and we set up a number of calls, and I found it was like a jump start for me with you, because your process, your idea nugget, and taking all those questions, we had a couple of different calls, so you could get to know who I am. You asked me these kinds of questions where you could start to get a picture of what my business is, what do we want to focus on, what were my personal interests, and that was both professionally as well as personally. And so part of that was how we would then capture those things, both, as you say, in my home, which was really important because we were doing a shoot right here. We decided we were just going to do everything right here. I didn't need to go anywhere. You come here. And it really helped me start focusing in on what are those things that reflect me. Because I have lots of stuff. Right? But really getting clear about what are those things and what are those great backgrounds that would help. And just talking with you, I got really clear. So I felt that I could help you because my idea was you were coming in for a day. I wanted it to be the best possible day, that you would get maximum results from our time together. And whatever I needed to do to set up the house, whatever I needed to do to set up the space, whatever I needed to clothes, we talked about clothes, who was I really, I think I wanted to be, on some level, I probably wanted to be X and I'm really Y. And I just said, I'm showing up as Y. Like really showing up as Y. I'm not trying to be anybody else other than who I am. And you really, you helped me. So I got so clear with you and your process.
Well, that's awesome. And that's, it's one of those things that people don't quite understand about this kind of work. It's collaborative, number one. It's not, you stand there, I shoot here, it's done. There's no real rapport. There's a rapport connection to this. There's a collaborative connection to this. There's a results-driven, there's an understanding of the types of results that we're looking for based on the needs of your particular business, your particular brand, where you're trying to go, what services you're trying to offer. And if you don't have that roadmap laid out very clearly, this thing can go haywire in a million different directions at any moment, because, we did the thought leaders session, we did the 6-hour session, and and that was a full 6 hours, and I think we might have went over. I don't even remember. I kind of blacked out after hour 5, but I was just working on fumes. I figured, all right, we'll figure this out. It's not.
I know. We put you in a cab and sent you home.
I know. The best part about that was the when we were reviewing the photos afterwards, and I'm smoking a cigar.
I know, my husband had cigars. It was great.
That's right. Speaking about that review session, how did you feel about doing that with me right afterwards? What was your feeling about that? Did you find that valuable?
So I want to say you were one of the most efficient. So I got like the level of concentration and energy that you bring, and attention and focus. But I found like that was sort of the tail end of, I was getting made up. You were to go outside to take all the pictures. You were busy in my house taking pictures. I had no idea where you were that whole time I was being made up and getting clothes ready and stuff like that. You were so efficient with your time, so that I wasn't expecting we were going to be able to look at any of those photographs at the very end. And I knew you were tired, but you were saying, let's go. And I thought, let's go. And we sat there, and you had already gone through and gotten rid of like the real bummers, right? Like I didn't even see them. But then to start going through even together to see them, have a sense of how they were immediately, was so, for me, so gratifying. Instead of waiting. And, in a couple of days, you had them all turn around and here, like, put them on my shared drive and figure out what I want to do with them. I mean, you are so, and then you apologize for being slow. And I thought, slow? I mean, oh my God, like 24 to 48 hours, what I had was amazing. But that experience of sitting down with you, the photographer, and looking at them with you was really helpful. I loved it. It was very satisfying.
It's, I've written about this. I'm a big proponent of doing it right after the session. I don't do it with everyone after the session, but most cases I do it directly after the session. And it makes me feel, it reminds me of when I was a kid and my grandmother, my Italian grandmother upstairs that lived on top of us in the house, Christmas morning. We were not allowed to open any of her gifts unless if she was sitting directly in front of us as we opened them to watch our reaction. So for me, that is exactly how I feel when I look at these photos with my clients right after the session, because it's so fresh and new. And it's like, these are great. We got to do this and this and this and this and this. And I mean, yeah.
You're deleting that.
Yeah.
Oh, we got more of those.
Yes. And as far as the turnaround time, one of the reasons why I like to have these things turned around so fast is because I want you to use these things. They're once they're color corrected and cropped, they're sent out. I want you to use them for the website. I want you to use them on social, use them for your profile pictures, all of those things that we talked about, because that's what it's for. So, and then one of the other reasons why I don't need to take forever is because I am very minimal with my retouching. And that was something that came up between you and I during the course of us strategizing and shooting and looking at the photos. And what ended up transpiring from that retouching conversation for you?
So, well, there were two parts to it. One,
yes.
And we've talked about this before, is, I'm no longer the ingenue, and we took pictures outside and, they're beautiful, but I had to really look at myself and say, I'm no longer 30, I'm no longer 40. And even though, I'm blessed with beautiful skin, I had to look as a woman who's aging, I hate to say it, and say, how do I feel about not touching up my pictures? And there are people who would, use Photoshop. And I remember the first one, I was like, we're kind of going through, and I was like, and I like some, like, I like the smile, and you and my husband are looking like, no. And then you were able to pick the one that was me. There was me that I'm using, like, beyond. And then I ran it past other people, and they were like, absolutely. Like, it's hard to see yourself. But I kept having that little, like, what's going on with the lips? What's going on? And what happened was I just said, if I'm going to be true to myself, and I'm going to be true to being a wise woman of my age, and that's part of what I bring to my clients, and being a woman who feels good about herself, then I need to let go of all of that and just be where I am. And you were a big supporter of that. You really were. And you didn't want to do a lot of touching up. So that was huge. As you know, that was huge. And the results of that is the feedback has been enormous. People admire me. People say, they wish they could do it. I mean, it really became this whole other conversation about being willing to do that. But everybody think, men and women, beautiful picture. I mean, beautiful. So that was a big thing for me. The second part was, I don't want to overstep that, but the second part was hilarious. We did that picture with the wall, and I had a dress on, and you said, oh, just throw it on. You're only going to see probably some sort of, maybe from the shoulders up, and we could see my waist, and I had the wrong underwear on. I'm like, John, you got to get rid of those underwear line. And you did, right? That was hilarious. I was like, that we're not.
No,
lines on the face, but no underwear line.
No, and yeah. Now that's the thing.
And that was it. That was it.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, I retouch photos. I do clean up things. I do that. But there are times when I work with certain clients, and there's certain things. It's a matter of, there's levels of retouching is what I really mean to say. There's just get rid of some of the distracting, like blemishes or whatever, which weren't really an issue for you, minus the wardrobe malfunction stuff, which we did take care of. But replace that line with a pimple that's really poorly placed, right? Then in that case, we would get rid of that. But if you want me to shave 25 years off of your face, that kind of stuff, I don't personally do, and I try to dissuade people from it. Listen, at the end of the day, what's to say you not take the photos and go find someone to retouch them and do that? That's fine. But that's not what this conversation is about. This conversation is really about authenticity. It's really about showing up the way you are. It's about presenting yourself in the best light possible, because I don't want you to look in a way that you're not confident in. That defeats the entire purpose of the images. But we want to stay kind of true to who you are, because at the end of the day, you're doing all of these different businesses, but in some way, shape, or form, it all ties back to helping people find who they are and who they serve and why they do what they do. And that's all very, authentic things. And if you're showing up and they're like, who the hell are you? You look nothing like the photos. How am I supposed to trust you? That is really where this conversation and really where my methodology behind that comes from.
Yeah. And to that point, which I think is really interesting, we were talking earlier, that the work in terms of my website, the work in terms of I use the same profile photo for all my social media.
Good. Yep.
And it's the one picture that it's so distinct. It doesn't matter where I go. Both with people I know will comment on it, how beautiful it is. But more importantly, the people who have never met me. I had a client recently, very recently, within the last month, that never met me. We'd spoken on the phone. She'd seen stuff online. We spoke on the phone. I showed up at her home. And when I asked her why, she could have selected anyone. She was not in New York. I had to fly where she was. I said, what made you select me? And she said two things. She said, you're totally trustworthy. She said, each encounter I had were totally trustworthy. Who you were on the phone, who you were in media, who you were on the phone, and then who you are showing up. She's so consistent. So she said, totally trustworthy. I thought, that's amazing. And then the second thing she said was, she goes, and you're very down to earth. You're very practical. I thought, those are two things. If that's how I'm coming across, then, that's an amazing job. And that's the work that we've done, the consistency, the message, the photo. And when you and my husband were looking at the photo, that you said also something, the photo that you picked was that I looked confident and I don't want to say wise, I think like an expert, like it was confident and an expert. And I thought, again, so it can't do any better than that. That's what I was looking to portray. Whatever else is going on, that's, if people have that sense, then we've done our job.
Yes. Yes. Because at the end of the day, you know, you attract a large group of people that come in that have no idea who you are. They have no idea where you come from. But the first thing that they see are those photos. On that website, they see those photos. On your profile page, they see those photos. And those are the photos that are speaking on your behalf without you ever saying a word to them. And when you have that ability to get someone's attention, that is, in fact, why you invest in branded lifestyle portraiture. Now, before you actually pulled the trigger on putting this whole thing in motion and us working together and collaborating on these magical, magical pictures, what was holding you back? What were the apprehensions? What were some of the objections that you had going, maybe thinking about working with me or portraits in general? What was holding you back?
That's an interesting question. I think just, you know, my natural, some of me is just naturally nervous about the unknown, right? I felt very, I knew you came well recommended. I'd seen your work. I knew I had met you briefly, so I had some sense of who you were. The phone conversation, I was totally on board. I was excited. If anything, I was just nervous about, it's my own nervousness about, is it really going to capture my home in a beautiful way? Am I going to really look the way? Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's that unknown, getting all prepared. How is it going to show up? How is it going to actually be reflected? And it did help for me. You know, some of it is, again, because I'm on the inside looking out. It's very different from the outside looking in. That what was helpful also is I had two friends come. I called them my stylists. You know, they were my two best friends who were kind of here to help. Also be, you said if I could have some people be clients and stuff like that, and they were willing to come. But it was just, it's just, some of it's just my general nervousness about looks, you know, like all that. So it was very physical. It was about like how things were going to look, how my house was going to look, how I was going to capture. And they were like, John's great. You know, the person we had here to do the makeup artist is great. They were just like, and they've been in television, by the way. They both have done television work. They were like, you're great. You're in great hands. You know, like he's a pro. And so it's like, okay, you know, because some of it, I guess that's really when I say it's like, you know, you invest in something and you hope that the investment is going to pay off. It's like, it seems like a lot of money. I feel like it was worth everything. But sometimes you think, wow, it's like paying a lot for this. I've never done this before. I've never done anything like this before. So then not knowing that too.
Interesting. Yeah. And as far as your friends are concerned, yeah, I ended up talking to them about my my TV life and all of that. And then that's when that came up. That was pretty funny. Yeah. I remember that. We were shooting with the bells. I remember the bells. Yes. And then we were in the living room looking over through books, and it was great. Yeah. No, and actually that was a really important little wrinkle because of the familiar, like having your friends there kind of helped put you a little bit at ease.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but then they also double dutied as actors for us, which was amazing.
They were great. They showed up fully dressed and ready to go.
I know. Yeah, no fooling around. That was pretty cool having that. Now, with respect to the rest of the experience, shooting for 6 hours, how was that anyway? How was doing that for 6 consecutive hours, plus the makeup stuff for an hour beforehand, and then the review afterwards? So we had quite a full day that day.
Yeah, we had a full day. You know, it's funny. This is sort of me, the artist in me. When we're in a creative process, time has a very different experience.
Yes.
And so I was in it. I was fully in it, fully engaged. Wasn't really even thinking about eating. I love to eat. You know, it was like we had food there. I wasn't aware whether people were eating or not. You know, it was just like we were on. We were on. It was like performance. We were on. I'm not a I want to say that's the other thing. Like, I don't think I'm becoming, I'm a speaker and I've done performances before, but I don't think of myself as an actor, an actress or anything like that. I'm just, regular person that way. But we were on, right? Like we were on. It was like performance. I do sports. It was like we were on, and that's actually a really good analogy for me. It's like I felt well. I felt ready to go. I know how to manage my energy, and I just went, right? I just knew this was it. We had so much time, go. And so for me, it was great. But then at the end, like you, I was like, wow, I'm tired. But I was exhilarated. I was excited, exhilarated, and tired.
Well, I think
it was a great day. The point was.
Oh yeah, no. Oh no, I slept very well that night. But I will say though, it's a funny thing when you get in a state of flow, and that's what we had. We had a very, very, very prolonged time frame of flow, and that it does sap the energy out of you, but while you're in it, the energy is very hyper focused. And the fact that, as you mentioned before, going through all of that strategy and having it laid out kind of made everything, all right, on to the next thing, we need to shoot you doing this, let's do this, let's move here, we're moving the room, change your outfit. All of it kind of just went very seamlessly.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, as you said, it's like you look up, it's like, oh my God, it's like 5 hours. It just zipped by. I didn't even realize it,
Right.
But that's kind of the way that these things kind of go. But now, as far as the way that you're using the images, so far you've basically focused on updating a website, renovating that's done. What's the reaction to the website?
Oh my God. So I launched my official launch. So we met in September. And it took me from September to really the end of December working with somebody, web designer, to really get sort of what we wanted, what were going to be the images. And I had like so many images. You have no idea how many times I would like print out, figure out what I was going to do. We changed.
Oh, yeah.
We changed. And I loved having them because, originally I had this thought, even though I'm artistic, I don't think of myself as a web designer, even though I have technical background. I mean, it was so funny. Like really what it was is I wanted somebody to design my site for me. In the end, I designed my own site. I mean, we worked together. It was very collaborative. But in the end, I realized if I was going to get the image and the feel I wanted, I needed to get it. And your photos were amazing. I mean, I just played mix match, trying to figure out, it's like having a storyboard, change, whatever. And the photos were so strong, and I had so much to choose from, almost too much, right? Like I was like I'm going to go this way, that and I gave myself a deadline. I said, January 8th, we are out. We're out. Fully launched, everything lined up. We did a whole buzz. The response to the website overall was overpoweringly, people just couldn't get over the photos. They were so strong, and they loved them. They loved them. They loved the colors. I mean, it was all the things that we were trying to create, right? The colors, the movement, working outside. That's the other thing we didn't talk about. Not only were we working in the house, I have a garden. I have like a little arboretum, and we really used that beautifully. And I'm so happy we did, because it's just such a beautiful place. And people love those pictures. Love those pictures. I mean across the board.
Yeah. I was a particular big fan of the frogs with the
the frog, yeah. I like that. Yeah.
The frogs, yeah. Listen, you gotta work that in, all right? I want to see frogs.
Yeah. I'll put out my frogs. Oh, I'll put out the frogs. It's summertime. It's the perfect time to have the frogs, the fountain.
Now, what is going on with the social media stuff? Now, we spent some time talking about it. And where are you with respect to putting together a full-out assault to be out there
Yeah.
on social?
So I'm getting there. I feel like it's I have a lot of content. Obviously, I have a lot of, I mean, I have so many photos to work from. Some of it was, I think, social media has been, it was great to have a website. Social media for me is an area that I had a lot of personal discomfort, really kind of putting myself out there and having a voice. And even though I knew technically how I should be doing, what I should be doing, I had all the tools. I've had a lot of, I want to say, resistance, anxiety about being out there and doing it consistently. I don't know why. I've had a lot of fear. So I have had all the tools, but recently somebody said to me, I was telling you this earlier, that my best friend, my business is Everyday Feng Shui. And I'd start putting pictures out and then I stop, and then I start putting stuff out and stop, and it's trying to get my message and make sure it was consistent, even though it was all there. And she just looked at me and she goes, Kate, your business is Everyday Feng Shui. I expect to see you out there every day Feng Shui. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's even, she goes, you have beautiful photos. I don't care. Just get out there. And that was kind of the little push I needed to say, just get out there. Just whatever that fear was, I needed to get over it by just doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and making it part of my day.
Yeah.
And so that's where I am. So I'm relatively new to that. And then the other thing we talked about is I want to do more writing, do more with posts on LinkedIn and stuff like that. And so it's all sort of part of the same thing about feeling comfortable, figuring out my time, figuring out where I prioritize. But right now, doing posting for me is really important.
Yes.
Really important. So having a pool of photos to choose from, as well as do my own, really powerful.
Especially on top of the fact that you have your writing habit and you do write consistently and you leverage that time. I remember talking about this during one of the calls, actually. It's like, well, you already have built in the practice. So as a result, you're already starting this without even realizing it. Now, the matter of fact now is just to simply figure out which of all of the different things that we talked about, all of the stuff that you've already written, how to kind of pull the interesting nuggets from all of that stuff and then complement it with photos that visually punctuate the sentiments of those stories. I mean, it's all there. It's just a matter of putting it into place. And you will.
What's that?
I said, and you will.
Oh, and I will. Part of that too is, here's the good news. There's no complaints here. I have a lot of content. It's a little overwhelming, to be honest with you.
Sure.
And so some of that was the strategy. I have some videos. I've done some talks. I've done some podcasts. I've done some interviews. I have a lot. And so part of it for me, and I don't know whether this is true or not, I just believe it is, like I wanted to have some kind of structure, if you will, context, consistency in the storyline, or sort of have it make sense and not be totally hodgepodge. So that's part of what I'm doing now. And then we've talked about is, you said I could have set up like at the beginning of January and had to go for 6 months. I mean, that's my ideal. When we talked about that, the idea is that I could have that much content and spend time getting it set up so that it's just out there and I don't have to worry about it. That would be my dream come true. And I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there yet.
Well, and I think it's important for you to share this, because I think that a lot of people, there's two camps to the social media thing. Either it's way too, like, from the outside looking in without even trying to do it. It's way too much. I don't have the time for that. I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah.
Or the other side, which is the more militant, structured, and no, we got to do this and we got to knock this out. What I've discovered, I'm more of that person, because I leverage my writing in far more than just creating content. It's everything to me, because when I have a bad day, I write, and I write about the stuff that I do for with my clients specifically. Like I don't journal. I write like thoughts and ideas because it helps. It's cathartic, right? However, what I've noticed working with a wide variety and having these conversations with my clients after the fact and during and before, but I realized that it's not two camps. It's actually, at the end of the day, it's a progression to get from one to the other, where even if it's not about doing it every single day and this and that, it's not about that. It's about consistency. It's whatever consistency looks like to you.
Yeah.
The way that you become consistent is by, first of all, getting past the whole, part that you've been getting past, which is, the putting myself out there and all of that. But you know what you're going to write about, and you have the content with which to do it and the images to complement them. So it's just simply a matter of finding that time to really invest to get started, because once you get started, that's when it goes. It's a snowball effect.
Right.
So,
it's true.
Yeah. Now, so results wise, now especially, let's talk about the website in particular. Since you relaunched the site or launched the site and you put out these images and you have all of this stuff, what has been, in terms of conversations, in terms of insights from your particular clients, in terms of engagement, what kind of results have you received from your website with respect to this, with all the images and everything put on it?
Well, a couple things. This is the guidance, and this has been sort of my main operating principle, is everything should be really going to my website. Everything that I do outside of is sending people to my website. So I've some talks, creating landing pages to send people to my website, emails, send people to my website.
Yep.
And so it's been really important. And for me, I love my website. I feel very confident about it, and people have been going to it. And it's interesting, I still have some work to do in terms of tracking where people come from, like,
yes.
where, and that's, again, these are the things I know, some of the logistics I have to start building in, because people are coming in, people find me, I have a system set up where I do a 30-minute free consultation. Actually, I call it a free exploration or exploratory call.
Sure.
So people, and that's where people come in through the various places I am, in terms of whether they're coming in through Instagram or whether they're coming in through some of the events I've been at. I'm a resident Feng Shui expert on a site called Astro Styles. And so they have a huge following. And so I make sure anywhere I am that people are being fed back to my website, which is the point. And so I've been getting a lot of people, and from all over the world, to be honest with you, all over the world.
Really?
Really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So I have people coming in to set up the calls. I have people coming in to, I have a PDF that they use that they really like, and then they're interested in knowing more. I have people asking me for classes, which is kind of interesting. I'm starting to think I need to do some stuff around having a webinar that, provides people something. And again, I would have that so that they would go in there. I send people, if they want more information, Feng Shui, my press and my blog. People read, by the way, and I can tell, my entire website. Do you know how amazing that is?
It is. That's
They're
awesome.
just like, go in. They read. I know, because they'll tell me about information. I'll think, where'd they get that? They got that from my press. One of my best friends who never told me, we were having dinner one night, and she goes, Kate, I watched every video on your press site. I read every, she goes, it was fascinating. Yeah. So that, to have a place, a container, to have all that, so people get the experience.
Yeah.
I'll get my YouTube, I'm like, those are all the things I want to do, but that I have this central place gives me a sense of confidence.
Yeah. It's not, and also, that's how you get people on the phone. And that's what you do. You're getting people on the phone. You're nurturing them through your content. You've created an environment and a cornerstone piece of your digital ecosystem, which would be your site, which is at the top of the food chain, because that ultimately is the last touch point that a lot of people go to before they pick up the phone. And you have created this very organic and authentic to you type of website that invites people in. That's the whole point of this.
Right.
And when you and it's not just the images, it's the video and it's the text and it's the marriage of all of these things that are uniquely you to create this type of synergy that attracts people in. And that's amazing, because that's what we do this for.
Yeah.
So I look very much forward to seeing more social media in terms of the image content out of you, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to harass you about that yet, but I am watching. I'm just letting you know. I knew about the podcasts. I knew about the articles, but I'm watching for the photos too. But Kate, yes. But listen, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you coming on and having a chat with me. It was a lot of fun working with you. I look forward to seeing where the future takes you and I look forward to doing more magical pictures with you.
Me too. Thank you, John. Okay.